Let's get into our first topic. Should the two-child cap on benefits be scrapped? 020-7862-2222 is the number. Keir Starmer will reportedly be told by senior cabinet ministers to axe the controversial policy. It was brought in by the Tories and prevents many parents from claiming universal credit for any children beyond their first two. A child poverty task force will recommend lifting the cap before the budget in November. Rumours are also swirling of some form of announcement at the policy at Labour's conference, which starts on Sunday. Equalities Minister Bridget Phillipson, a candidate to be Labour's deputy leader, is the joint head of the task force. She's called the two-child limit spiteful and said that axing it has to be on the table. I'm going to show you some graphics here which sort of break it down, OK? So we look at sets of three kids here, generated by AI, of course. So here we go. Take a close look. Come on in. Come on in. There we go. Here we go. Let me get the right camera. £292.81 a month, the amount in universal credit you get for each of the first two children born on or after the 6th of April 2017. So that per child, £292.81. £18,300 is the amount families miss out on over the first 5 years of the third child's life. So they're going to lose £18,500 over 5 years. 4.5 million is the number of children in poverty in the year to April last year. 500,000 is the number of children that could be lifted out of poverty if the limit was axed, according to the IFS. And finally, 3.5 billion is the estimated cost of axing the two-child cap. There we go. That's it. I hope that's helpful. Some numbers for you. And then the question is, Matt, whether it's right to do it.
I've thought long and hard about this, and I've been debating it with left-leaning friends, and I was putting as strong arguments as I could for not scrapping the cap, but in the end they convinced me. And the reason I would scrap this cap is because it would lift, it seems, hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. And that, to me, trumps any other argument. I'm sure you'll make those arguments, so I won't bother making them now.
Go on.
No, I disagree. I've worked in public sector housing, welfare to work, and for the DWP for around 14 years. And the thing that really gets to me is this word poverty. I'm not disputing that there are children in poverty, but generally speaking, children who suffer, it's not because there's not enough money coming in the home. It's due to substance misuse. It's due to poor choices. It's due to being unable to calculate finances and what to do with that. So it costs us, if we scrap it, it'll cost 3.5 billion. I want to see that money going into making fathers more responsible. We've seen record numbers of single mothers where the father is not paying anymore.
How does the government make fathers more responsible?
Whether that's investigations, whether that's promoting family unity, whether that's promoting family planning. Years ago, we had an issue with teenage pregnancies. One of the elements as to why there was an increase in child pregnancies is because sometimes human nature, if it is easy to get something, people will go out there and get it. So many single young teenage girls were getting properties easily from the council. There was a kibosh on that, and that was reduced. We saw record numbers of teenage pregnancies reduced. So my thing is, instead of throwing money, let's try and preventative measures to encourage also young women, because, OK, I'm not a feminist, but let's say we're trying to encourage women to put their careers first, to put their education first. If they're in a system that I need to have another child, we've already got a safety net for two. OK, you may have had, I don't want to call it a mishap, but unplanned pregnancy. You may have done another one. Why are we facilitating and throwing taxpayers' money, many people that go to work and actually think about, I can't afford a child, why are we then encouraging people to throw money at third?
OK, let Matt come in. Let Matt come in.
Just quickly.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. First of all, I'm not sure that there's any evidence that this cap has meant people have fewer children. I think that's important. The second thing is, why don't you follow the logic of your arguments and say we should scrap all child benefits of this nature, not just for the third and other children, but also for child number 1 and child number 2. I am following the suggestion that appears to be evidence-based that if we scrap this cap, we will raise a lot of children out of poverty.
But let's look
But
wider.
is it that, I mean, that sounds like just a mathematical thing, but surely is poverty not in its own way a spur to people finding better jobs or whatever? And once you take away that spur, they don't.
Well, either it's right, Jeremy, that scrapping this cap will help poorer children, or it's wrong. If it would make no difference to children and their welfare as they grow up, their well-being as they grow up, then fine.
Well, that's a good argument.
Sorry, let me just finish the point.
Yeah.
Keep the cap in place. But if it is right, and I'm following the suggestion that it is, this research, if it is right that it will help children out of poverty, then for goodness sake, let's do it. Otherwise,
That's
you were talking
not-
about what are Labour values earlier.
But it's
what
not
is a
long,
Labour
Matt.
government for if it is not to
Let me
alleviate
come in.
child
It's not
poverty?
long-term planning or support for these children. It's not enabling women, because it's often women who are single mothers, to say, do you know what, let me try and get off of the drugs, the alcohol, the misuse.
Negative stereotyping.
I'm not saying all. I'm saying I work in the industry. I work in this
So
field.
you have worked with people,
I
right? So-
see people every day on the front line. I do better off calculations. I'm not sure if you've had
Matt's point
experience
is really
of that.
simple, which is without this grant, they're in poverty. If you give them the grant, they're out of it. And it's quite a hard thing to argue.
It's not as simple as that. My thing, again, when we look, I believe in the UK having a safety net. I celebrate the safety net. When we looked at, family allowance in 1948, where after the war, women needed support because many of the men died or there was that need for support. Now we're getting to a place, our welfare is increasing and increasing, and we have to shrink it. We can't just keep on throwing money at the symptoms. We need to look at the initial root
You're talking in
cause.
emotive terms. I'm not saying that some parents aren't drug abusers. I'm not saying that some parents don't have issues with alcohol. What I am saying is the research. What I'm saying is that the research seems to indicate that scrapping this cap, and yes, it will be expensive, and people like me may need to have to pay more tax. That scrapping the cap will drag. Let me just quickly make the point. Will drag children out of poverty. I understand.
You have said that, okay?
Well,
you keep saying the same thing.
But that's because it's my argument.
Yeah, I know, but you can't keep saying the same thing as what else we heard it.
What about people on low wages that have to pay more tax and they've decided I can't have a third child?
I get that.
Are facilitating those who just keep on having more children?
Because they're helping the children. You're helping the children.
Okay, Sharon in Staffordshire, hi.
Good morning.
What do you think, Sharon?
Good morning. And it's always a pleasure to see Lynn on your programme. A voice of reason, she is. She really is.
Oh, OK, so
now,
I think I know which side you're going to be on here then.
Well, definitely Lynn. Now, Jeremy, I as a taxpayer, why should I have to be paying for other people's children? You tell me why.
I'm going to give you the answer to that because there was a bloke on Question Time on the BBC who said this the other day. Why am I paying for... And somebody on the panel who was on the right said... It's in all of our interest that we have a next generation of children come on to do the jobs when we're all retired, Sharon.
Well, darling Jeremy, no, they will not come when they grow up to do the jobs because they tend to be like their parents. They don't work or do anything with themselves. And I don't think we should keep throwing money at these people.
Is that right? I don't know. I mean, you may say that. I always think it's people who are brought up by billionaires who are lazy because they've never had to work.
Can I come in on that, though?
Yes, please.
Sharon does have a point. We have seen record numbers of young people that are applying for PIP or they're actually on universal credit that are able, who are, increasing our welfare budget. So, spending rather. So, I see where she's coming from. There were people. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there were people historically having more children who were not reliant on the system. So why can't we encourage family unity, marriage, or civil partnership to keep the families together
what is the answer?
and pay for their own children?
Because it's not about paying necessarily for the parents who've had more children than they can perhaps afford. It's about paying for children who do not have any choice as to what as to what sort of family they come into. My priority. I'm not saying that parents don't sometimes act irresponsibly. What I'm saying very clearly is that children have no choice in this matter, and it is perverse that the first two children should be helped, but not the third.
OK, thank you so much, Sharon. After the break, we're taking more of your calls on whether the two-child cap on benefits should be scrapped. 020 7862 2222. Good, we heard from Sharon. Now Peter in Wolverhampton. Hi, Peter.
Morning, Jeremy.
Where are you on this? I know you've talked in the past about being on benefits yourself.
Yes, I think the original policy came in as a kind of horror against the lives of the lower orders. And this is the kind of thing that Lin's now promoting. It's kind of upper-class horror at our lives.
Well, I don't think Lynn's ever claimed to be upper class.
Why do you think it's anything to do with upper class? The people that I speak to the most are the ones that, you know, they're on not a fantastic wage, they're working hard, they've never been on benefits, and they've decided to maybe only stop at 2 children because that's all they can afford. And then we turn around and see the government throwing money at people who couldn't afford the first one, couldn't afford the second one, made no planning for the third and the fourth, and we're just going to facilitate all of that.
That's the big argument here, Peter. Is nothing. Matt's thing is once they're born, you've got to help them, and Lynn's is actually you can dissuade people from having the kids they can't afford.
There's no evidence for that.
Can I put it to Peter? Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, you just heard the contempt. Throwing money at. We're not a dustbin, Lin.
Quite right, Peter. I think that
So
sort of language is just so old school and prejudiced against people who are often quite vulnerable. I understand why, if you are a family who think you can't afford a second or a third child, you would be concerned about paying money towards families where they've decided to go on and have a second, third child. I get that. I'm in a position where we may not try for a third child, partly because children cost money. It's not so much the parents I'm looking out for, it is the children. And as Jeremy said earlier, it is in the interest of us as a society not to have hundreds of thousands of children growing up in poverty.
OK, that's... Peter, we see the clarity here. Matt says once they're born, you've got to help them. Lynn says they shouldn't, essentially, I mean, not quite saying it this strongly, but you can stop people having kids they can't afford. They won't have been born under her approach. Peter, she's right, isn't she, about that?
No, there's a smack of eugenics about this.
But you keep using this strong language, you know, calling her posh and upper class and eugenics. Just stick with the actual facts of the situation.
Yeah, well, the situation is that these people like Lynn have a horror about the lower orders, and she.
Can I just correct you there for a minute? I grew up. My parents were divorced.
You don't have to
my
say
mum
this.
was on her. No, I want to, so he knows.
OK.
Was on her own, and my mum refused to go on benefits, and she decided to only stop at me because that's what she could afford. And I have inherited that. I've decided not to have children until I can afford them. I want to empower women to get an education, to get a job, to get on the housing ladder before they have not just 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where I'm coming from.
Peter, why have you made so many judgments about Lynn without knowing anything about her?
Because she works for the DWP, which I don't like, and also because she keeps expressing contempt, like we're all on drugs and we're all breeding like rabbits.
I've never said that either, Peter, but OK.
Thank you. You answered the question, though. You've got to say that. And you work for the... Do you work for the DWP? You work for a council, right?
I have worked alongside the DWP.
Yeah, you work for a council. Yeah. OK, Peter, thanks. Call again. Margaret in Cornwall, hi.
Oh, hello.
Do you think they should give the benefits for the third child and fourth and fifth and so on?
No, I don't. Very much. I was told several years ago now, and I hope somebody can tell me if it's true, that if you earn over £60,000, you can't get child benefit anyway. Is that true?
Oh, it's different thing, isn't it? That we're talking here. Is it 60?
Yeah, so
it's a combined salary issue, isn't it?
The child benefit is different to the benefit we're talking about here. This is for people who are on very low wages or on universal credit, where they can get, for their first child, $339 a month. That's not the same as child benefit for those on 60k and below.
OK, so also my grandchildren were saying that there's more people on the planet today than have ever lived. So do we want to have more on the planet? Can the planet cope with
it depends how many immigrants you want coming to this country, because I don't know what your views on immigration are, but if you are someone who's concerned by the level of immigration, if we don't have enough children, if we don't have 2.1 on average children per family, something like that, then we will not replace ourselves and we will need people coming in to help us.
That's a good point. He might have the slam dunk argument there.
No.
Because Italy's in this... They're not having babies at all.
I agree with that. But then what I want to see is us having children in a way that we empower families to plan first.
OK, I
because it's child cruelty to keep on having children and you can't facilitate or look
Margaret,
after
thank
them.
you. Amanda in Lancashire, hi.
Hiya.
Interesting discussion, this one.
Yeah, very. Well, there is a couple of points. I mean, I do think it should be scrapped from 2 and maybe go to 4. But there is a couple of points that I actually agreed with Lynn on for a change, because I don't normally agree with her. But some of the points, when I was younger, girls having babies to get flats was the case, but it was to get away from abusive families. Now, and that I know some of those girls from the past. Now, the other point is, if we wait and wait till we can afford to have a child, majority of people would not have a child, because we can never really afford a child. But
I don't know if Matt's got.
We'll be careful about making too many assumptions.
I don't know
Jeremy.
if he's a wealthy guy, if he's landed.
Can I make a point about the politics of this?
Even he's pausing.
Jeremy, let me make a quick point about the politics of this, because when this was brought in under David Cameron, I think it was George Osborne when he was Chancellor, there was horror on the Labour benches. There was horror on the left, generally. And then, of course, Keir Starmer refused to scrap it when he became Prime Minister, and they suspended the whip from 6 or 7 MPs who voted against the King's speech. So there is a political issue here.
Yeah.
There's huge pressure from the left for this to be scrapped. But, of course, Rachel Reeves is struggling with her pennies. So this is a big problem to watch politically.
Quickly? Amanda, you said, if we just wait until we can afford children, we won't have children. OK, why don't people like myself, why don't people who get up every morning and go to work, why don't we all think that and let's all just rely on the welfare system? And then there'll be no taxes to facilitate this system.
I'm not saying you have to rely on the welfare system, right? Because when I was married, I had 2 children. Right, now, the second one, I lost the second one, and then I went on to have my second son. We couldn't really afford to have him, but I am so glad he's here.
Oh, good.
I became a single mum while having him, and I still bless the day that I've got him.
Oh.
Because it's not about the money or being on benefits. It's about helping that child. That little bit of money that you get for child benefit can make a massive difference to a mum with a baby. It will buy formula.
Okay, that's a very, very powerful thing you've said, and we're not even going to dare to argue with that. But we'll take some more calls after the break. Amanda, bless you. Thank you so much for that call. That's amazing. Should the 2-child benefit cap be scrapped? 020 7862 2222. We'll keep talking about it after our break. 2-child benefit. Obviously, Labour conference coming. Push from Bridget Phillipson, who may well be deputy leader, to scrap the 2-child benefit cap. She says it's spiteful. It was a Tory policy. Keir Starmer has stuck with it. I think they even, when they had people voting against their own welfare plans, they exiled them from the party. So they're at 6s and 7s. Andrew in Devon, do you think they should scrap the cap?
Hi, Jeremy. No, definitely not. It's probably the most important environmental policy that's ever been introduced, even though the Conservatives didn't do it for that reason. But there are just far too many people in the world, and we must reduce our numbers. And how can we lecture other countries around the world at having sustainable population when we have a system that promotes large families?
We've started, leave out other countries because that's confusing. We're just talking about the UK here. As I understand it, we aren't replacing ourselves in a great enough numbers. And Matt will pick this up with you.
That's a good thing. There are too many people. And I know that people are always going to argue that we need people for growth and we need people to do jobs. But actually, what we need to do is perhaps work a bit longer. We're all living much longer. How can we justify retiring at 65 and living for another 40 years?
Well, so we don't need a big replacement population. We just got to work harder.
There's the wider question of what the science does or doesn't say about population levels globally. And my understanding is that in the not too distant future, population is going to start to shrink.
Oh, right.
I may be wrong about that.
Usually obesity.
We know that Sir David Attenborough was very concerned about population levels, but I think this is a controversial and challenging area of environmental science. On the specifics of our own country,
which Andrew's asking about.
If we don't replace ourselves, then we will require immigration. And I'm not against immigration in principle, but we know that it is a very toxic issue at the moment in this country.
But Andrew,
I think that we need to replace ourselves with 2.1
But you might be wrong. This is what Andrew's saying.
I think it's easy for men to say that because the majority of men, I'm not saying all, but the majority of men in the UK are not the ones taking the burden of a lot of the hard manual labour when it comes to being a single father. Let's say society forced men to be single fathers like it does women at the moment. Would they still hold that opinion?
You're making the argument. You're making the argument to scrap the cap because people, whether they are single fathers or single mothers or indeed in couples, are vulnerable if they can't afford their children.
When we have a society that requires women to stay in the home for decades where they've put their education on hold, they've put their careers on hold,
all the more
because
reason to help
men don't do enough, in my personal opinion, at the moment in society, it's easy to say.
Matt, sorry, let's just get Andrew back in.
Can I make another point?
Yeah, please. Well, what do you say to Lynn here? You said this is just a bloke saying, I want to have the field clear of other blokes.
I don't understand that point, but the other point is...
Lynn speaking.
We tend to just retire at 65 and do nothing. We should be starting to work less, so perhaps doing part-time work as we get older. And then we can cover jobs that we need, like in care homes and stuff.
Maybe we've... Thank you. Sorry, Andrew, I do apologise, but we've got Joe waiting. Joe in Sheffield, hi.
Oh, hello. Hello, Jeremy. Hello, panel.
Hello.
Sorry to bother you again, Jeremy.
Oh, it's all right.
What a lot of really, really good callers today.
It's unusual, isn't it?
Really fantastic. No, it's not unusual.
I'm kidding. Go on.
Really it's just anyway. My essential points are that I've actually chosen not to have children for varying reasons, but although people might presume that coming from that perspective that I would be against scrapping the two-child benefit, but I am not. I'm with Matt that the essence of the issue is supporting children. And Lynn, you've made some really good points, but sometimes you do come across as a little harsh, like a little judgmental. You do.
Well, she's honestly, in the school of hard knocks.
No, I do understand that, and I've been told that before. But when you work on the front line with these families every single day, I want to empower people to have better family planning and less reliance on the system.
OK. Thank you.